vaccinations. It's all depending on JKM. Although JKM has been doing an excellent job, but we see now there's some issues, especially because all the planning does not involve us. The decision does not involve us. So how is it OKU mendepani perubahan if JP OKU isn't even led by an OKU? Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So disability inclusion addresses the meaningful participation of persons with disabilities, the promotion of their rights, and the consideration of disability-related perspectives in compliance with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about how the existing COVID recovery aid has done for OKUs. When we talk about BPR, is it BPR now? Because the name keeps changing. Yeah, BPR. So BPR is specifically set for single OKU age 18 and above. But how about families with OKU kids? Are they covered by BPR? Okay, and then we look at if you are on the BPR list, you are eligible for My Salam, Peka B40, which is I think for non-communicable diseases, and then Grant Khas Prihatin, which is for funding for businesses, as well as this Jaringan Prihatin. Okay, when we look at all these possibilities that you can get from BPR, right? And when you're on the BPR list for below 40, for B40, if you receive Grant Khas Prihatin, you will be excluded from the B40 list. You will be excluded from BPR for OKU. It's amazing how just because you're getting GKP, you won't be able to get, you can get help for your business, but you can't get help for yourself. It's interrelated. You cannot separate it. And then when you have Jaringan Prihatin, but you are not on the BPR list, how are you supposed to get help for mobile devices, for you, for us, right? And also about proteges, where employers get tax rebates when they hire disabled. I'm talking only on disabled people today, okay? So when they hire disabled people, they get tax rebates. But the PWDs themselves are hired as trainees. They are not workers. They are trainees on contract. They are working during a pandemic. Are they allowed leave? Are they allowed any medical coverage? Are they receiving any SOSO or EPF? Not all are covered by SOSO. Some are covered by EPF. Okay, and then when you look at protege, you know that okay, there's a contract. This person have to start work from a certain time to a certain time. But are they protected by Employment Act? If there's any problems, who can they report to? There were so many problems with protege where disabled employees were forced to work on weekends and they were not even getting paid for all the overtime. Okay, I can talk more about this, but I won't because I think it will take the whole day. Okay, let's building back better. So you need to include us when you plan for COVID recovery. And we need to remember all the lives lost due to COVID. Is our healthcare system enough? And are you actually including PWDs in your decisions? When you look at My Sejahtera, there were not enough supports in the help desk for disabled people. And even for vaccination, most of us have to, disabled people with organizations, they had to plan their own PPVs, pusat pemberian vaksin. That's just not right. Why do they have to step up and do our own? We are part of the system. Why did it take so long for people to include PWDs in the phase 2 vaccination? right? Okay. And when you talk about certs, the vaccine certs, if you are a dependent and if you have multiple caregivers, your digital cert is stuck on only one caregiver. Is that logical? It's not. What if a person who already owns his own vaccination cert, right, on his own MySejahtera, suddenly needs to become a dependent? This is life, right? You can become disabled anytime, and you can be a dependent anytime, right? And then how do you translate that into your digital cert? Is that possible? It's not right now, okay? And recently, our orang asli have been complaining that they are not, they when they don't have smartphones, they don't have digital certs, so they're stuck with the papers, and that handwritten cards are not accepted at most places. Actually, they still want the digital cert. That's inequality. Okay, let's look at education. On education, we need to be more universal. We need to use universal design learning, and we need to train our special education teachers better. On housing, we need to use universal design, implement it, access audit it. Housing should be something that we stay on from birth until death, somewhere that you can live comfortably. Okay, let's look at this video about information.
Everyone is different. We live, work, play, and interact in our own individual ways. Many of our experiences are influenced by our senses and our situations. In the online world, this means how we see, hear, move, and think can vary greatly. That thing you just did on that app, someone does that in a completely different way. When you're planning your next digital creation, think about your audience's preferences and how varied those experiences may be. Don't cut someone out just because you haven't prepared for the way they might interact with your creation. And most of all, make it easy. This is what being inclusive is about. Making sure that everyone gets to do what they want to in a way that suits them. Here are a few things to keep in mind. Some people may have 20/20 vision, but some might find your app blurry or may see colours a bit differently from you or me. Some folks might need to bump up the text size a lot to read it. And some people may not be able to see it all and will listen to content read out aloud to them by a screen reader. So, make sure you have enough contrast. Let your text really pop. Use a bigger font, make it easy to see and easy to change when needed. And code it correctly so that it makes sense when a screen reader reads it aloud. If you're using sound, not everyone will hear it and some will want to turn it off. So make sure you're providing an equivalent way to get the message across, like a transcript, captions, or sign language. We all move differently. Some of us can easily use a mouse or swipe on a touch screen, but not all people navigate in the same way. Some people use the keyboard to go through everything linearly on a page. Others might use a head stick or an eye tracking machine to perform that same action. Some will need more time to get things done, and for some people, it might hurt to move. So make it easy to get around your creation. You should be able to use a keyboard as well as a mouse to perform any action. Not everyone will understand things easily or in the same way. Every brain is wired differently, so some people process information faster or slower than others. Some people understand information better when they hear it compared to when they see it. Others may find it difficult simply because your language is not their language. And some people just might need more time to process information and act on it. Don't rush them. Write your content so that it's simple and clear. Make it as obvious as you can. As creators of digital experiences, our mission is to make sure our users can do what they need to do. We're all different, and we should respect those differences in ourselves and in others. So plan for their success. Be inclusive. That thing you're creating that you want them to use, build it to help them be awesome. They'll love you for it.
Thank you, Yana, for that lovely video. We're rushing a bit for time. Let's catch up at the Q&A. Shall we invite Dr. Haniza from UNDP to give her remarks first, and then we'll go back to you, Dr. Ken. Thank you, Dr. Haniza from UNDP. The mic and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Puan Sharin. Excellencies, Cik Yana Karim, Dr. Ken, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored to be part of this panel and of course in celebrating this day, International Day of Eradication of Poverty. Poverty is indeed complex and multifaceted. In many participatory studies on poverty, when the poor is asked to describe their life, we hear that it is not just the lack of money. In fact, they rarely talk only about money. They will talk about their children not doing well in school, about the flooding that happens often where they live, the difficulty of getting internet access for working or learning from home. These are the things that keep them awake at night. So the problem of the poor is much more integrated. And if a household suffers from many types of these structural burdens, we can say that the household is multidimensionally poor. So this is the idea of multidimensional poverty. And unfortunately, concept of multidimensional poverty is not a sum of 1 + 1 becomes 2. Often the problem reinforces each other. For instance, lack of security or violence affects educational outcomes. Lack of transport is not just lack of transport. And like Cik Yana mentioned just now, it affects the ability of gaining income or safety when going to schools, for instance. Mental health issues arising from dysfunctional family institutions, limited knowledge on sexual and reproductive health, ineffective parenting skills, lack of work-life balance, over-indebtedness, as well as excessive internet addiction. We are acutely aware that these problems will affect health and education outcomes of the poor. So these issues are important to them and therefore should be important to us when we want to design policies to eradicate poverty. Ideally, money resources are there to create the capabilities for these households to come out of poverty and to prosper beyond that threshold of poverty and to prosper further. And this is the idea behind the human development approach, which UN adopts. Now, it guides the UN, which UN adopts and guides our interpretation and actions in eradicating poverty. So we measure development by how empowered an individual is, not just the amount of money that they receive, but how empowered they are, how capable they are to realize the lives that they desire through the acquisition of things and non-tangible things, or capabilities. The idea of providing people with capabilities so that they can live the life that they want to live, to be who they want to be. So the concept of multidimensional poverty based on that, it goes beyond income. Let's take an example. If a family is given 100 ringgit just to ensure that the child in the family is able to go to school. Yeah, so it covers the bus fare and it can cover some basic stationaries. So that's the you can call it basic needs or whatever income, but the receipt of that 100 does not guarantee that the student will develop the capabilities that is meant for him by going to school. There could be other problems that hamper his capabilities to do well in school. And by doing well in school, perhaps he will have later in his life more choices, more work choices, more options to live the life that he wants. So there could be problems such as violence in school, discrimination, lack of the right infrastructure, for instance, for PWD students, mental stress, all of this that could cause the child to not be able to learn efficiently, and in worst cases, drop out of school altogether. So resolving income poverty is not the same as resolving multidimensional poverty. They are different, but they must happen together. They must go hand in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, last week, on the 7th of October, UNDP and OP launched the new figures for the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, or what we all know as the MPI. Across the 5.9 billion people who live in the 109 countries studied in the report, more than 1 in 5, about 1.3 billion, are considered multidimensionally poor. And half of this number are children. But country to country differences are equally interesting. If we go to, for example, we take Pakistan. Pakistan has about 38.3% people who are considered multidimensionally poor, but only 4.4% are considered income poor. So you see the difference between income poor and taking into account other deprivations or lack of capabilities into account. While in South Africa, 18.7% are considered income poor, live under the poverty line index or poverty line income, but only 6.3% are found to be multidimensional poor. That means despite of having low income, they are suffering less in terms of, being health poor or educational poor. So it's different. So that means that both income and multidimensional measure stress again, that must be interpreted together. We must understand the who, where, and how of the people who are poor. So the Multidimensional Poverty Index uses a number of indicators to measure determinants of well-being. But the conditions to develop the well-being themselves are actually good health, education, decent standard of living, and some countries have now added gender equality, income security, and not just income level, but income security, stability of income, access to digital services, tertiary education, and so on and so forth. The Malaysian MPI, for instance, has 4 poverty dimensions: health, education, standard of living, and income. And the recent 2019 HISBA findings showed that 1.1% of households are considered multidimensionally poor, as compared to 1.5 in 2016. So this is the aggregate number. If we drill down by dimensions, we find that the highest incidence of deprivation is seen in quality or standard of life, which takes the form, or the indicators, the proxies that were used were like garbage collection facility, 13.3% are deprived of good services in terms of garbage collection, and this affects their life, right? Their capability to function and work. Followed by room crowdedness, again affects their capability to work and function. Access to healthcare facilities, 6.5%. Income poverty, 5.6%. But beyond the MPI, there are also other data that can be found related to multidimensional poverty. For instance, prevalence of underweight among children under 5 years of age is 14% in 2019. Stunting is 21.8%. Wasting is 9.7%. And all of these numbers is higher than the 2016 numbers. As of January to
Dr.
July...
Dr. Haniza, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Wrap up for maybe just another couple of seconds on your final sentence. Sure. We'll go to Dr. Ken shortly.
Okay, just a few numbers and then also 1 or 2 solution ideas, and can get back to that later. So I was at suicide cases on the rise, distress call for emotional, mental health, they're all on the rise. We all know the stories, it's on the newspapers all the time. But we also still have problems of treated pipe water in certain states, electricity and so on. And COVID has just made everything worse, and we were caught by surprise, but the poor were even were caught by even more surprise, because they did not have any backup system for such a calamity. So if we understand that poverty is for most part driven by the lack of ability to create that opportunity, so to reduce disadvantages, the multidimensional poverty, then the solution must also lie in creating and expanding opportunities by reducing discrimination, by reducing anything that could hamper a person's ability to prosper and to create the wealth or the well-being that he wants to create for his family. So they can be by introducing innovations, creating the right partnerships amongst the poor, between the poor and the community, between the poor and the government, services, creating social arrangements that could help women, for instance, to go out to work, PWDs to enter the labor market more effectively, opening up space and opportunities to digital community, financial literacy. So these are all, methods or pathways to develop strength, the economic strength, of empowerment, social empowerment strength, and in order for the household to break away from the thresholds of poverty. I think.
Thank you, Dr. Haniza. I will play the moderator role and pause you there and bring in Dr. Ken. Thank you. Very important information and points that you shared with us. A lot to think about. Dr. Ken, looks like you're all ready. We look forward to your intervention. Please, thank you.
So salam sejahtera and selamat pagi. Very good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us for International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. Thanks for bearing with me during the technical problem. We have a packed program, and we've already spent some time on this, so I'll go ahead. So when you leave this conference today, after you've heard all the great contributions from speakers and attendees, I hope you remember at least the 4 key messages coming up on my slide in my presentation. Poverty is multidimensional, and it's often measured by income, but even someone who has adequate income may be impoverished in terms of their health, education, access to basic services, or the quality of their housing. It could be non-material impoverishment, such as being socially excluded or not being able to enjoy basic human rights. And closely related to this, but something that's overlooked far too often in Malaysia, is that some people may be afflicted by poverty in various dimensions at the same time. That is the really key part of multidimensional poverty, is multiple deprivations at the same time. Okay, thank you, right there. The key takeaway messages. So second, Malaysia's current MPI is based on a very low poverty standard. It's a standard that may have been appropriate for Malaysia in the 1960s or 1970s, but it's practically irrelevant for addressing poverty in modern and prosperous countries such as present-day Malaysia. The new 12th Malaysia Plan provides an excellent opportunity to rectify this. Third, so far there's been almost no analysis of Malaysia's official MPI. It could be a valuable tool to inform policy and monitor progress, but not if only the index numbers are reported without digging deeper into the nature of poverty in which too many Malaysians are living. And fourth, and this is going to be important since our time is short, our team at the World Bank just released a new policy note that explains the points I plan to make today and does it in much more detail than even if I had my full time in this short presentation. So please download it. I will put it in the group chat right now. Okay, there's the link. Please download it, read it, share it with colleagues and friends, and give us your feedback. It's available on the World Bank website and on the Subilo conference platform. And then if we can, let me see, do I have any time left, Shireen?
About 15 seconds.
Okay.
I'm challenging you now.
Okay.
Your marathon is about to end.
Okay, so if you could go down to, keep going down. Next slide. Perfect. Okay, so this is an example of some of the unpacking I'm talking about, where you can, in this slide, you have to read the policy note to get it, but the different ellipses, different ovals represent different dimensions of deprivation: health, education, living standards, and income that are all in Malaysia's MPI. And in the paper, we did some illustrative examples of more ambitious MPIs than Malaysia's current MPI, because one of the real weak parts, when I said it's too low a threshold, how can I say that? Well, in RMK 11, it was said that which was where MPI was introduced, it said it was to monitor the progress of the B40. But as Dr. Haniza just said, as of 2016, 2019, it was only about 1% of the population that was considered multidimensionally poor. The standard is, I said, maybe appropriate for Malaysia 50 years ago, but not today. So also in the policy note, we give a lot of examples from other upper middle income and high income countries such as Mexico, Chile, the European Union, where they have set the right poverty indicators and thresholds for deprivation that are appropriate for a better off country, an upper middle income country aspiring to become a high income country such as Malaysia. So one more slide now, I think. Okay, and I put my key takeaway messages at the end too, so we will leave it up there for as long as I've got the screen. Sekian terima kasih, and I look forward to the Q&A. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Ken. Lovely. May I ask for you to stay on for at least the next couple of hours, if that's not too inconvenient for you, while people chat directly into the chat box on the platform and sort of post their questions or some of their observations. We're really coming to the very end of our session today. May I invite Yana to do your last remarks, and then we'll move to the next session. Yana, the microphone is yours. Very quickly, thank you. I'm so sorry to rush you.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to congratulate our Yang Amat Berhormat Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri, for Malaysia's success in taking a seat in the UN Human Rights Council. Let's start by facilitating PWD's rights by reviewing PWD Act, adding enforcement and penalties. Let's also realize our rights to autonomy and in decision making. At the same time, we want to challenge everyone here in management level to ask your HR, how many of your employees are disabled? Does it reach 1%? If it does, can you try to reach 5% next? If you reach 1%, I would love to know how you did it, how long it took for you to do it, because Malaysia has been trying to do it since 1988, and for now, it's still 0.4%, and in just 4 ministries. How can we get employment if even the government won't employ us? Pandemic amplifies the voice of diverse people. Thank you for listening.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Yana. And we will close this panel. A very big thank you to Dr. Ken in Washington. And of course, Dr. Haniza in KL UNDP office. Dr. Ken, your report will be well read, I will assure you. And we will keep in touch and look out for the chat box. They may be chatting and asking you questions. Please stay on as long as it's convenient for you. I close this session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move to the next session. And our keynote speaker is Dr. Jomo. And they are all ready backstage to come on board. With that, thank you very much, everybody.